Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Morning Rant, the show in which I, Alex Raculia, a TV commercial director and software developer, talk about my life while I telecommute from my home to the office. It's been a while since I recorded the last episode. I needed to do something to say something to you, and I hadn't any topic. And so I asked to my friends in my Telegram group, the Telegram group of my podcast, in Italian, sorry. What should I talk about in my The Morning Rant in English version? And a friend of mine, Luca Francesca, said, you can talk about vibe coding and explain why it's bullshit. Okay, interesting topic, but first I have to do a little disclaimer. If I consider myself a director, I can say, okay, I'm good, I'm fine. If I consider myself an editor, I can say, okay, I'm good. If I have to sell myself as an editor with a special skill in music handling, I'm very good. I never fail a music. Never. For once, I composed the music for my shorts and commercials, and I was good. Period. No question. Okay. But the strange thing is that I studied information technology. First, in high school, I was one of the best of my class, and in the end, I achieved the highest score in my school, in the entire school, when I graduated. So I am good. I'm good. No, I'm not that good. And then I studied information technology engineering, and I was okay, not as good as I wanted to be, but I worked while I studied, and so I consider myself a survivor. Okay. And so the strange thing is that I studied information technology, and then I switched to be a director because while I was working in a multimedia house, software house, our biggest client at the time asked for videos, and I said, "Oh, I can do that." And in 3 months, I switched completely. I never wrote a line of code anymore, and I was doing a video all day long, 24/7, 365. Then I started doing a TV commercial, blah 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 blah, and then something like 10 years ago, I started over doing development because I needed tools, and then after a while, I started selling those tools. But I have to say, I consider myself something like a mid-junior developer. If I was completely humble, I would say junior, but there's one caveat. I develop things using Swift programming language for Apple platforms and specifically for macOS. I did some iOS apps, and I will do for third parties soon in April or May. But 99% of what I write is for macOS, for people who use macOS for producing audio and video content. That's a niche of a niche of a niche. I think that the only three entities developing seriously app for Mac are Microsoft. They have to do because they sell Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all the stuff, and Adobe because their main market is for creative people is the Macintosh, and so they sell Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere, InDesign, Illustrator, and a bunch of other stuff. And then there's Apple developing something like Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro or the iWork suite, Pages, Keynote, and Numbers. But if we look closely, at least Microsoft and Apple, they are switching to a complete web-based development. Microsoft 365 is web-based, and I think that in the near future, all the Microsoft apps will be a web view onto something else. And so the macOS version of their app will be a very, very tiny shell. The same for Apple, because they're developing Pages, Number, and Keynotes. Those apps are completely web paired with iCloud.com ones. Okay, it's quite difficult to develop an audio and video software such as Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro to be performant in a web view compared to the one that you can develop locally. But as soon as the video games will be completely in the cloud, so all the apps will be completely in the cloud. And so, okay, I respect all the people who follows me, who watch these videos and they develop macOS stuff. But let's be honest, nobody, and I am nobody, develops things for macOS. Okay? So I'm the niche of a niche of a niche, and I use Swift. It's a quite common programming language, but almost no one develop for macOS. Period. So let's return to the vibe coding. The coding helped or completely produced by the artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. I started being helped by ChatGPT when ChatGPT was based on model GPT-4, and then I tried Claude 3. No, I started using Claude in 2.5 version, and then I did a little ping pong for aided development. And I have to be honest, when I have to do something very, very basic or entry level, or something not so entry level, but that is quite common, such as string parsing or regular expression or trait safety for structures, I can say that GPT-4 and Claude and Gemini that I started using recently are quite good. But when I have to do something that is not so common, that I cannot find by myself in 1 or 2 minutes of research on the web or on Stack Overflow, then things get tough, harder, and hallucinations start arising. I always ask for a bit detection algorithm or a bit detection library for Swift, for macOS, and 99% of the times, all the models says that AudioKit, a very common and popular library for audio handling, has a quite precise API call. The answer is always, yes, you can do this using this API, using this function. And then I try to use this function and the function does not exist. But the real thing, the real interesting thing is that there's no another function similar in the name or in the functionalities. This function does not exist at all. The sureness of the artificial intelligence models and services, when they say, yes, it's very, very possible, it's quite easy, and it's never possible and it's never easy, make me doubt a lot about these features. They're becoming every day stronger and more powerful. Recently, I started using Gemini to make my code more polished or more safe. And I got a lot of information and I got a lot of help on how to make my code better, more efficient, more performant, and more safe. But I always have to scrutinize and control and verify all the results. I don't want to let a machine to write hundreds of lines of code. I prefer let the LLM to concentrate on 20, 30, 50 lines of code and to make them better. And they're doing an interesting job on this. They are making my code a little more safe, but I think that today, for me, for my language, I do not use PHP, I don't use JavaScript, I don't use C or C++ or Ruby or whatever fucking language you use, you cool guys do. For my needs, the power is increasing. It's making me a little more faster in doing stuff, but I think that the road is still long. I think that one day, in 1 or 2 years, maybe earlier, machine can do a very, very, very good job for mid-level developer. The final question is, will vibe coding overthrow the system and take everything? There won't be any need for new developers. I don't know if these models can learn from themselves and improve instead of copying. I think that the real definition of general intelligence will be there when they will learn new skills without copying them. I don't know if we are near. The marketing people, such as Sam Altman, say, "Oh, we're almost there," and they're doing a lot of super, super, super cool stuff. But at the same time, the rate of making this model always better is decreasing. And I think that there will be the need for a revolution in this kind of models, a new kind of model to do this kind of stuff and to get a new strong improvement. So I think that vibe coding is quite interesting. We should accept it and not being so skeptical. Well, always being skeptical when a machine does the job of a man or a woman or whatever. But it's something that should be considered very, very, very carefully not thinking about it as a revolution, something that can take your job, but a tool that can be used to improve and make more efficient everything. So machines, please spare me when you will rule the world. Thank you very much for listening to me. And if you like this video, I don't think so, please subscribe, like it, comment down below. What do you think about machine learning? What do you think about machines doing this kind of jobs and all the stuff? The funny thing is that everybody is talking about vibe coding and almost no one is talking about vibe directing or vibe editing. I think that in 18 to 24 months, my job as a TV commercial director will be very, very, very downsized because I think that at least a couple of clients of mine will be able to do my job using these tools. I have to face it and I have to be prepared to do something quite different, and maybe I will start learning how to do the plumber. There will always be the need for a plumber. Strange, huh? See you. Ciao!